Looks like we're live.
There it goes.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us online today for our first ever live stream video. My name is Philip Arnold. I'm the Director of E-Learning Systems here at OTC, and I'm pleased to be joined by Corey Charlet, who is the Assistive Technology Specialist for Disability Support Services. So welcome, Corey.
Hey, Philip. Thanks for having me, and how's it going, everybody?
Well, before we get started, I wanted to kind of explain what we're doing today, why we're doing the live stream, and what we hope to accomplish in the future with this format. So Disability Support Services and OTC Online have been collaborating for some time, and we figured, we've been talking about accessibility and how to make online course content more accessible for some time, but we've been struggling with a way to, I guess, spread the word and be ambassadors for accessibility and why it's so important here at OTC. We have been watching a lot of live stream videos through Facebook, as I'm sure everybody else has, and we figured this format might be a good way to do it. So we're going to have a couple of sessions. These are intended to be very short, 5 to 10 minutes. This first session may be a little bit long, but I hope you'll bear with us as we kind of test the technology and make sure everything's working. All of these sessions will be recorded, so if you want to watch them, if you don't have a chance to watch live, you can watch them through the OTC Online YouTube channel, and Jackie's going to share a link to that channel in the comments area. But as we go through the live sessions, be sure to post any comments or questions you have about what Corey and I are talking about. We won't answer live, but we'll get back with you with an answer. This is not meant to be a live question and answer, but we will respond to your questions as you post them. So again, these are going to be really quick 5 to 10 minute sessions. For the accessibility sessions, we're intending that we have probably 2 or 3 of those. We'll have another one next week on captioning, which Mindy Gomez and Melissa Jones from DSS will be hosting. Same time, 2 o'clock on Tuesday. So I hope you can join us for that. We'll send out another event calendar for that particular session and following sessions. So thanks again for testing this with us. A little bit of background on accessibility. As I mentioned, DSS and OTC Online have been kind of championing, I can't say that, championing, okay, I'll just forget saying it, right? The accessibility cause, I guess, here at OTC, if you want to say that. And it impacts all of the areas here at OTC, not just OTC Online and DSS, our physical facilities, but particularly in our areas, the digital environments, our online classes, even our seated classes, where technology is being used more and more, multimedia, PDF files. We're seeing more technology, obviously, in all classes, hybrid classes. So it is something that we're trying to spread the word about. Some of the things that we're encountering, there are some legal issues with not providing accessibility, obviously, in higher ed. And Jackie's also going to share another link with some of the lawsuits that have occurred within the last few years as the Department of Justice and other federal agencies and state agencies have been cracking down on institutions of higher ed that have fallen short, I guess, on accessibility and making content accessible. Even Netflix has been sued, and now you'll see them providing accessible content for all of their videos. So it's not just in higher ed, it's nationwide and even worldwide to some degree. So just wanted to kind of explain the importance of it before we get started. And what the intent here too also is to provide an overview, but also provide some practical tips and strategies for you all to use in your online classes, in your seated classes even, for enhancing or improving accessibility and reducing the barriers. So I'll stop talking now. I'm going to ask Corey a few questions here and hopefully give you a little bit more information about some of the support services here and what we can provide at OTC. So Corey, give us a little background about what you do and some of the services that DSS provides.
All right, so what I do is I work specifically with our disability resource counselors to make sure that accommodations are provided to the students. And so some of the duties that I have are helping students with testing accommodations like extended time or readers or scribes help provide textbooks in alternative format. I manage our assistive technology lab, which is located in Disability Support Services in ICE 116. And then I help with making sure that classrooms and areas of the college are accessible. So making sure desks are the proper height, computers are set up in a way that any student can use them, wheelchair bound or not. So I work with them to make sure that really the college and online content is accessible.
And just thinking about the impact here at OTC, and we've gone through some of these statistics before, but can you tell us how many students come through the DSS office? How many students we're serving with disabilities?
So just for the spring semester, Disability Support is working with about 485 students, and that's across all 5 campuses. And so the way that accounts for is about 4% of our student population have reported a disability, not necessarily that's every student that has a disability. The big difference between high school and college is that just because a student has a disability doesn't guarantee them services. They actually have to come and let somebody know, hey, I've been diagnosed with this disability, it affects my education in this way, is there something you can do to help?
And how do faculty and staff know that a student is associated with DSS?
So faculty and staff should know that a student receives accommodations through Disability Support. At the beginning of the semester, we send out what we call an accommodation memo to our students. And what that is basically just a notice saying, I'm this student, my counselor in Disability Support is Trixie Braden or Jeff Jones or Lindsay Sorbo, and these are the accommodations that because of my disability, I need for class. So some of those accommodations are going to be things like extended time on testing, a student note taker for in class, books in alternative format. It just really depends on what the student's disability is and how it affects their education, and that'll determine what the instructor is notified with. But so the student gets that memo at the beginning of the semester, and then they turn that over to the instructor the first day of class so that those two can discuss it and figure out their particular agreement.
And as far as accommodations, what is a list of the accommodations you provide? Does it differ from teaching modality, from online to seated to hybrid? Or is there some crossover there?
We have a lot of crossover. So our most common accommodations are going to be things like extended time on testing, readers and scribes for testing, student note takers, like I mentioned before, raised desks or monitors in the classroom, books in alternative format. So we have or audio recording lectures. We have a lot of accommodations that the majority of our students will receive. But as far as that cross-platform, either online or hybrid or seated, any student in any class is entitled to books in alternative format. Any student in any class can get extended time on testing. And then I know the awesome folks around here provide all kinds of training on how to, make your online content accessible. But with the way that classes are becoming more and more online, even our seated courses, every seated course has a Blackboard or a Canvas, or teachers are posting videos. All of those need to be captioned. Any PDFs that are loaded up need to be made accessible with the screen reader. There's a lot of different things to think about. And so regardless of what accommodation appears on that accommodation memo, there's a lot to be said for making, universally acceptable with universal design principles, which I think we may be talking about.
We'll be talking about that in a future session. Yeah, universal design is something that we talk about here at OTC Online, and just making content accessible to everyone, not just students with disabilities, but being inclusive in the design of our online courses and whatnot. So we will be talking about that. But as far as going back to the accommodations, what are some of the biggest problems you see on your side with providing these accommodations? What are some of the things that maybe faculty should be aware of? Some of the problems that you see, prevalent problems that you see as far as accessibility?
So the most common issues that we have with providing accommodations, a lot of times, is just communicating with the instructor in our department. For whatever reason, the student doesn't turn over that accommodation memo, or the instructor is adjunct instructor or is new to the college and just isn't super familiar with our office. And so we're making every attempt that we can to get our name out and make ourselves available to instructors and staff to where they can come and ask us any questions. The specific accommodations that we have trouble with are things like closed captioning. It's just really labor intensive. It's really one of those things where you may not know that a student needs it because they didn't turn in the accommodation memo, but then suddenly, because of their deaf or hard of hearing, they're not able to access that content at all. Another thing is PDF accessibility, which a PDF is kind of like the mainstay. Everybody uses it to share files, but depending on how it's saved and how it's created, blind individuals are not able to use those PDFs at all. It'll just appear as a blank document. Testing accommodations is another area, just because a student needs a reader, they didn't schedule it in time, and we need a couple days beforehand to be able to convert that into an audio file for them. Just because of manpower and availability of staff. And then we're seeing a rise in the number of students who are on the autism spectrum coming in and registering for classes. And so a lot of people have never had any interaction with somebody on the autism spectrum. And so accommodating students on the autism spectrum, closed captioning, universal design principles with PDFs, stuff like that. That's where we really see a lot of struggles.
Right. Well, we had several sessions planned after this one, as I mentioned, but we may need to expand that. We've talked about universal design, PDFs, making them accessible, closed captioning, and autism, as you mentioned, being a bigger issue. So again, we hope to bring more of those in each week here for the foreseeable future. So if you have any questions about what Corey has said, we're going to post Corey's email in the comments section. You can email him directly or me, and we'll be getting back with you on that. But before we go, I also wanted to mention and thank Sarah Fancher with the library. We're bringing in other departments too to kind of join into the conversation about how we can make content more accessible. And Films on Demand provided through the library, speaking of video, Films on Demand does provide closed caption through their platform. So if you have any questions on that, we might just start posting links for everybody. If you have any questions for Sarah on how you can search for videos that are closed caption, I think that would be helpful too. But if you work in a service area, or if you're faculty who want to contribute to this and add to it, or have a broader conversation, we hope to do that here in the faculty Facebook group, but outside of the faculty Facebook group too, just informal discussions around the table. So if you want to be a part of that, please just reach out, and we'd like to include you. So I want to thank you all for attending this live stream session. Hopefully it worked well. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve it or make it a little less clunky, if you don't like the flipping camera, or if you need something behind me like a cactus, just let us know. But I appreciate you being here. This will be recorded and captioned. The captioning through YouTube usually takes a little bit of time, so but look for that again in the OTC Online YouTube channel. We're going to create a playlist for accessibility items, and you'll be able to click through each one and just get what you want. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll sign off until next week. Thanks a lot.